Welcome back to another very special episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. Now, this is special for a few reasons. It's our second ever bonus episode, so you guys are really lucky you're getting two a week. For the time being, do not expect this to carry on indefinitely. It is a reverse podcast, so the tables are turned. I am the guest of the podcast, and we had Ben Gray come down from Sport in Mind to be the podcast host for the episode, and he's honestly done an amazing job. I cannot thank him enough for coming down and doing this today. And then finally, this is our 100th episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast, which is a massive milestone for me. When I first started podcasting, I had no idea it would go the way that it has. I didn't think I'd be doing it more than a few months, to be honest. I've almost given up multiple times, but we're still here. We're still going 100 episodes deep. Yeah, it absolutely blows my mind. So this episode is coming out on World Mental Health Awareness Day, and that's for a few reasons. First off, it's because I am a Sport in Mind ambassador. This is what this episode is all about, my fundraising for Sport in Mind through the 6 and 6, through my next challenge, the ONA Series Triple Centurion, and there's loads of things I'm doing in between for Sport in Mind as well. One of which is, starting today, there is a challenge Sport in Mind are doing where the goal is 100k over 10 days. Now, you can do this as an individual or as a team. I'm on the Run Talk Run Sport in Mind team, so we're not just going for the 100k over 10 days. We've set a challenge where for every pound that's been donated to us through either of our fundraisers, we're going to do a kilometre. So I am extending it because we haven't had enough donations, basically. So if you want to make me, Ben, and our other teammates run, cycle, swim further and want to see us suffer more, then please donate and we will make sure we get those kilometres added on. So for every pound donated, we're adding on an extra kilometre. Yeah, so that's another big reason why I'm releasing it today on Mental Health Awareness Day. So over the next 10 days, if you go follow me, follow Ben, follow Sport in Mind, you can see how we're all getting on and what we're doing to make up the mileage. There is a leaderboard, I will admit, and I do want to be top of the leaderboard. There's actually two leaderboards, as I found out recording this episode. So one is for who's done the most mileage throughout the week as individuals or teams, and there's also one which is all about who's raised the most money, and I want to be top of both leaderboards. I'm very competitive, as we talk about in this episode. We also talk a lot about mental health, especially around the sort of challenges that I do around adventure athletes, and yeah, just a whole host of things, basically. It's a really insightful episode. Ben did a fantastic job being the host and really kept it to the spirit of the podcast. So thank you, Ben. Yeah, just before we get started, guys, I thought I'd play the Sport in Mind ad so you can really see where the money that we raise is going towards.
Sport has the power to change lives. Sport is more than exercise. It's motivation. It's purpose. It's possibility. A reminder, you are not alone. We are Sport in Mind. We understand what it's like to feel disconnected. That's why we create spaces to support mental health. We meet people where they are and use sport to help them find their way back. Every step, every pass, every moment shared builds something stronger. A community, friendship, a force for good. We are made to move, to feel, to breathe, to connect. Sport drives us, but it's people who inspire us. Every day, every week, they get back up. They keep showing up. They never give in. The strength that lives in all of us. So join us. Stand with us. Because when it comes to mental health, sport is the answer.
And now, enjoy the podcast.
So I'm Ben Gray, run ambassador, run lead for Sport in Mind, and Will is now an ambassador for Sport in Mind as well. But yeah, obviously we've got to kick off with what was your call to adventure?
I was wondering if you was going to ask that. My call to adventure. Oh, I've asked this so many times now, 100 as we found out, and. Yeah, I've got a few, as everyone always says, and I can see why they say it now, being the other end of it. But I've always had that drive in me to want to do something more with myself. But I've always struggled because I hate, as stupid as it sounds having my own podcast, I hate the attention on me. I hate being the focus of attention. I hate being seen as someone different. Which again sounds stupid because all my things are challenges. I don't just enter a race and be like, oh, I'm going to do a Pona and fundraise about that. It's always oh, well, I'm going to do something that no one's ever done, like the Pegasus Slam in a week, and make it my own. So knowing both sides of me, I don't really know how they come together. And it's well, I want to do this stuff, but I don't like being different. And I still really struggle with that. So when people make a big deal out of me doing these things, I sort of shrink away and I'm like, no, I'm not special. I'm not I don't want the attention, but I do because I'm trying to fundraise and push a motive. So I've always had that sort of in me, but I think it really sort of came about in end of 2020. So before that I was firefighter, started pushing myself in these challenges. I did a strongman competition. I ran my first ultra marathon that year. I didn't train for it. That was the same year I did my first ever half marathon. 2 months later, running my first ultra. Went through all of that, and I was sort of on the track to go in where I am now. And then 2020 happened and I was homeless. But then a couple of days before I was made homeless, I was reading Living with a Seal with Jesse Itzler and David Goggins. And for those that don't know, Jesse Itzler is this big CEO, and he hires David Goggins, a Navy SEAL, to come and live with him and train him. And he documents the 30 days they're living together in a book and every workout. And I just started following that book and the workouts I was copying every day while I was still firefighting. And on day 3 or 4 I was then made homeless because of COVID and lots of things that were happening. So then I was sleeping on a park bench, ended up sleeping in the fire station, which mine wasn't a whole time fire station, so it was some chairs put together, and my manager brought me a sleeping bag to use and a pillow. And as grateful as I was for that, when you're asleep and you're not on call and the alarms go off, you're getting up. So I had 6 months of that, and then after that found somewhere to live. Within a week I snapped my ankle in half, so I couldn't walk for 6 months. I couldn't run properly. I did couch to 5k after I could walk again. I did couch to 5k 3 times over 3 years before I could actually run again. I never thought I'd be able to run again. And then just coming off the back of that ankle break, I had that moment where I'd just given up. I didn't want to be around anymore. I completely gave up, and it was the scariest single moment of my life, was waking up after the attempt and just being what the fuck did I do? Why did I do that? But then, as much as I like that idea of like that instant moment of like, this is change, it wasn't that. It scared the shit out of me. And then for the next 3 years, I just lived with it. And things, despite everything around me being okay, and I was financially okay again, and I had somewhere to live, and I could start doing some sport again. Even though I wasn't running, I was Olympic weightlifting and competing in that and all these other things. It wasn't that instant change, and I was still massively depressed for the next 3 years, and I just had enough of it. And I came across Stoicism when I'd broken my ankle, because I sat at home, and that's where this book collection started, because I couldn't do anything. So I was like, I'm going to read. So I came across Stoicism and the story of Hercules and his 12 labours. And I got into the philosophy of the 12 labours, and I was like, that there is so much in that resonates with me. All the things, all the philosophy behind each of the 12 labours is what I need to go through in my life right now. I need to get rid of my ego. I need to reconnect with nature. I need to do all of these things so I can be a more functional, useful person for the world around me. And then I set myself my 12 labours. So I set myself 12 challenges over the next 12 years to complete, which link in with the original story of Hercules, and started off with a 50-mile barefoot walk. Then I did the Welsh 3000s. That was the first one I attempted, and I failed it.
Right.
Did the 50.
How was that?
Oh,
like,
it was
taking it back, because that's like, failure's always an opportunity for learning, but at the moment it doesn't feel like that in that moment either. Like,
no, that was the first time, because I hadn't done anything for so long. But in my head, I was still the capable person that I was in 2019 when I was like at my fittest. I was the strongest I'd ever been. I was firefighting. I was doing the Goggins training book. And I was still that person in my head. And I was like, yeah, I'll come do the Welsh 3000s. It was my mate's idea. I had no idea what it was. And I was like, that sounds like a wicked challenge. Like the tallest 15 mountains in Wales in a day. Yeah, I could do that. And we rocked up, and I didn't have any outdoor gear. I didn't have any outdoor shoes. I didn't have any waterproofs. I wore like a cycling jacket. And this was like, I'm sure it must have been like November or something. So the weather was horrendous. And we walked to the bottom of the miners' path just before it starts going up Snowdon. We was like, we'll camp there next to the lake, and then we'll head up first thing in the morning and get started. And I was drenched, like soaked through. Everyone else had spare clothes and stuff. I didn't bring anything, not even a spare pair of socks. So I'm trying to sleep in my sleeping bag in wet clothes. And like we get up at like 4 a.m. and I step outside and it's like -5 degrees. Yeah. And I just get hypothermia. And I'm like, well, we'll try. And we did the first like 3-4 mountains, and I was gone. I was fucked. And I was like, sorry guys, I'm going to have to pull out. Like, you guys go on without me. They're like, no, we won't. And I felt awful. And for the next few weeks, I was like, I'm not that guy anymore. Yeah. I can't do this. I've set myself 12 of these and I can't even do one. So again, I went back into this massive depression. I stopped training, felt really sorry for myself. And then I was like, this is the point. I came across like another Hercules quote, which I can't remember at the moment, but it's all about like, if he hadn't gone through all of the hardship, you wouldn't know who he is. Like, yeah. And that's the point of the labours, is it's going to be hard. If it was easy, I wouldn't be learning anything. So then I sort of was trying to get that into my head and being like, no, just, this is part of it. This is part of the journey. So then I was like, right, my next challenge, I'm going to give myself 12 weeks to train. That was my 50-mile barefoot walk across the Brecons. And then I rocked up and I did that, and I got heat stroke. Completed it, but I was throwing up the whole like week afterwards. Yeah. Did it on the hottest day of the year, and I didn't wear a hat, which I don't know why. I always wear a hat.
Yeah. Is there like, I don't know, like just listening to a few of those things already, it feels, what is it? Because you're a coach, right? You're working with a lot of people, and I'm sure when you're helping other people prepare for these things, you help them like with some planning, and like just looking at all your books and the way you approach learning. Like you can be incredibly structured and thoughtful about how you're learning, right, and how you're gaining more information, and but then there's several big attempts that you've done where you're evidencing almost like, do you think it's self-sabotage in some way, or is it because you've got the skills and you've got the knowledge to know that, hey, like, I mean, you've actually, the hat thing is a really great example, right? Like, there's some sort of thing that stopped you wearing a hat when you always wear a hat. Like, what do you think that's about?
I've actually spent a lot of time thinking about this, because you're right. Like, you can see I put a lot of effort into my knowledge base, and anyone that knows me as a coach knows how much effort I put into my clients and how specific I am with their programming. And then they watch me train and they're like, what the fuck are you doing, Will? Like, you're turning up to events without training. And part of it is the fact that I know that I've got such a good base from years of training. Like, my general physical preparedness is like way above most. So I can rock up and do things, and I'm very proud that I can. So like when I did my Hyroxes this year, I knew I didn't have to do any specific training for it unless I wanted to like really compete and like go for a win or a specific time. Then I was like, okay, I could put in some training, but like I didn't want to. I've got no desire to win a Hyrox, so I was just like, yeah, I can just rock up and do it and be fine. Like the first Hyrox I did, I ran back to my parents' house, which was like 20 miles. Right. And I was just like, yeah, cool. Like, it's just another day out for me. So that's part of it. But then when it comes to like a big challenge, you can't just wing it like that, no matter like how fit you are. Like, you just cannot do it. Like, the level of the challenges I've set myself. So I do wonder, like, is there a bit of self-sabotage? Is there a bit of like, I know before when I was training when I did actually train for events, I would get maybe 4 to 6 weeks out and I would start being like, oh, well, I'm going to pull back on my training a bit and I'm bored of this now. I'm going to do something else and I'll be fine. And I think part of that in my head, whether I wanted to admit it then or not, was a bit like, well, now if you fail, like, there's an excuse. You can get away and be like, oh, well, I didn't train for the past 6 weeks. Whereas that's not really the right attitude to have. So I think there's a bit of that. Definitely a bit of like ego in there. Again, as much as I hate to admit it, like, I like to think that I'm really good at this and fitness is my thing, and why would I need to train? Like, do
you think there's some fear of success as well?
Again, something I've thought a lot about. I don't think so though, because there's no negativity around the success in my head. I'm not like, because I know some people are scared of success because then they're like, oh, well, what's next?
I was thinking more from that previous point around how you feel you don't really want to be in the limelight.
Yeah.
So success brings eyeballs.
It can do.
Could do. Yeah.
Back when I was doing things in 2019, I was doing them and I was completely under the radar. I didn't post about things. People didn't know. People still don't know most of the stuff that I've done.
Until now.
Even still, like, there's a lot of things that I just don't talk about because I don't feel the need to. I don't like that spotlight. I didn't do it for a reason. I did it for me. And there's a part of me that wants to go back to doing that. I relish that. I love the fact that I can just like turn up to an event and no one know me and I can perform and then I can just like disappear and no one hears from me about it, and I don't post about it. Like, social media is draining for me. As much as I post, I absolutely hate my social media. If I didn't have to do it for adventure athletes, I probably would have got rid of it a long time ago. But I like social media and the attention for fundraising. And that's how I try and make a positive spin out of it now, and it forces me to stay on and keep pushing. But yeah, I think I'm very good at like doing stuff without people knowing, because it's all personal challenges. Like I could have done the 6, not turned up to any of the actual events, not told anyone about it, and no one would have known. Like there would have been like my parents crewing me, and I could have just left it at that, and I'm quite happy with that. There's still challenges in my head where I'm like, I'm not going to talk about this because I just want to go and do it. And it's like, yeah, I really like that that's still possible.
Yeah, nice. So talking about the 6 and 6, right? We've got to do that. We've got to do that. So 6 and 6, obviously you did it for Sport in Mind, the best mental health sports charity that there is
Agreed.
on the planet. And it was fantastic to have you do that. But how did the build up for that go? Obviously in the context of we heard about some of your earlier stuff that you did, and it's complex, right? What led to some of the what might be seen as almost like silly mistakes leading into them, right? Like no hat or whatever, no specific training. I think it's an interesting one. Obviously your GPP's like really up there, and that's probably been almost like a source of pride that you've put that work in, that you're in a position where you can just go and do stuff and you don't have to do that specific kind of build up. But what did you like leading into that 6 in 6? And then as you actually went through it, like how did you find that whole process? Because obviously the first day, going back to your general like preparedness and stuff, probably wasn't too taxing, right? So like take us through that journey in terms of physically, mentally, emotionally of the 6 days.
So we'll start with the build up, because I find I'm really proud of this. I don't say I'm proud of much often, but I always thought I was fit. I always was like, yeah, like I'm a good runner. Like, of course I am. Like I rocked up to my first half marathon, did a 1:46, and I'm like, that's a good time.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I didn't train for it and I can rock up and do that, like I am a good runner. And then coming back from my ankle break and not having run for like 3 or 4 years, and then doing an ultra that year, I was like, okay, yeah, like I can still run. Suffered, but I could run. And that was 2023. I did the OTT again, which was my first one in 2019. I was like, I want to revisit that because that was all I knew. And I was like, yeah, like I want to see how I compare post-injury to where I was pre-injury. And again, I didn't really train enough for it, and I rocked up and I did it 2.5 hours better than I did the first time, because I did do some running, and I was like, yeah, like I'm good at this running stuff. And then didn't really get into running. Last year then I did the 496 challenge, so 1k on the first, 2k on the second, 3 on the third. So you do 496 kilometers over the month.
Is that the Sean one?
Sean Conway, yeah. And I finished that day 26. I had a fractured foot. Kept pushing through. Day 29 and 30, I had an illness bug, so I was throwing up and like shitting myself. Day 31, finished it barely. Around that sort of time as well, I had Rhys Jenkins on the podcast, so I was hearing more about running. And then from having him on the podcast, he was like, oh, you should talk to like Bob Thomas, who's like an amazing runner. He's currently training for Ironman, and he towed a drum kit 100 miles. And I was like, what? There's people like that? Like up until that point, like people were all people that I sort of knew, and they were like coaches or like
bit more mainstream perhaps.
Yeah. And then I started hearing about these other challenges, and I was like, I'll get him on. And then I had Bob on, and then I had like Nathan Marshall reach out to me, and then I'd have like other people reach out, and then that network, like the South Wales running community, as you've experienced, is like just phenomenal. And then that's just like made adventure athletes explode. And I was like, yeah, but I'm still not really a runner. Like I like everything. I like strongman, I like this, I like climbing, I like parkour, I like gymnastics, like whatever it is, I'm just really into it. And then Rhys was like, oh, you can have like a ticket to one of the ultras. And I was like, oh, amazing, yeah, I'll do that. Like I've done ultras before. So then I did the rhythm last year after my tyre flip attempt. So I ran the rhythm last year in a sling because I tore my bicep. And that was my third ever ultra, and again, suffered massively afterwards. And around that sort of time, someone was like, you should do the slam. Like, you got the mindset for this. And there was a thing that Reese said to me as well, where it was like, you've got the mindset, but you don't train for it. And he was like, if you trained for running, like, you could be really good ultra runner. Something along those lines, not like word for word, but like something along those lines. And that's like stuck with me.
Seed.
And I was like, I do have the mindset, but I really enjoy all these other things. And then someone said about the slam, and I was like, I can't get that much time off work. So then it ended up being like, when do you get holiday? I was like, I get a week in the summer. I was like, doing your week off. And then bang, message Reese being like, Reese, I'm going to do your slam in a week. And he was like, you're not the first person to say that. Like, come on. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to be the first to do it. And I have been. Glad to say that. But that sort of set the seed for that. And throughout that year, including the 496 and the rhythm, I'd run 1,000 kilometers that year. And I was like, that's amazing. That's a big number, 1,000K. Like, come on. And then I was like, I'm actually going to train for this 6. Like, I'm going to use my knowledge. I'm going to put a plan together. And I've got like 6-7 months to train. I was like, I can do this. And I'll sign up to some events to build up. That sort of snowballed.
Let's put a little bit in there as well, though, for the, like, for me personally, I love like all the details and stuff. So like, what did you? So you've got all this knowledge, right? There's some great strength and conditioning books and various like philosophy type books here that I think all feed into how you think about this stuff. But what did that look like? So you do a nice little warm up of 496K in January. Super back end loaded, right? So you've done several, they're not ultras, but you've done several big back-to-back days. The 496 puts you into a pretty big week at the end of that, doesn't it? So that wouldn't be how you would structure it if you were doing like your optimum training. No. But you've done that. You mentioned you broke your foot. So how did when did the actual sort of structured training for that for the 6 and 6 start, and what did it look like in terms of running, other strength training or anything else?
Yeah, so the 496 was January 24,
right,
and then the rhythm was September then. So then I gave myself like a few months of just strength training, trying to get back to rehabbing my arm, making sure my bicep was all right. That took me into December then, and then I was like, right, January I'll start like completely fresh. And I was like, I'm going to build up my mileage, aiming somewhere between like 50 to 100K weeks, depending on the week. But I know that doesn't sound a lot to some runners, considering how much that I'm trying to do in a week, because I know a lot of people...
But consistency is important though as well, right?
I know a lot of people that do ultras. Like, I talked to Nathan Hutton. He just trains for like his 100 milers, his 200 milers, and he does very well at them. And I've been speaking to him recently, and he's like, yeah, I do like 70 to 100 mile weeks. So like 50 to 100K is like a big way off doing 70 to 100. Sure. It's like half. Mm-hmm. So then I'm like,
are you running once a day to do that? I'm guessing once a day and a couple of rest days or a couple of days in the gym or something like that.
So I do 3 days running a week generally.
Okay.
Sometimes 4.
So that's the main difference, probably. Like when you look at either more experienced or more obsessed, depending on how you want to frame it. That's probably the only difference. You're doing 3 or 4 days the same as everybody else. Yeah. It's just everybody else is doing 5 more easy sessions to make up the volume.
Yeah, and then my thing is I do a lot of other things. So I'm doing spin 3 times a week because I take a spin class 3 times a week, so I can't get out of that. Yeah. And then I do 2 strength classes a week, which I join in with. I do other classes as well, but I don't join in with those. But I do 2 that I specifically join in with.
That's really interesting as well to me, because actually, do you have an idea of like where your heart rate is and what zones you're in and stuff? Because obviously a traditional spin class for most people is kind of high intensity interval training, right? Which actually, if you layer that on 3 runs, 4 high intensity interval sessions, couple of strength sessions, you are doing the same kind of probably hours of training. You're just doing it in a variety of places.
Yeah. So that's my thing, is I just spread my training out across different disciplines. And everyone always looks at me and sees that I get injured after these things, which before I like understood, and I was like, yeah, okay, like I should have trained better for this. Coming off the back of the 6, and I had that tear in the back of my knee, I've realised since, because I'm back running and everything now, from where I broke my ankle, as much as an amazing job I have done rehabbing it, it's never the same. And I still get an issue on the inside of my foot going into my ankle, where that will, like, every now and then it will just swell up and my foot doesn't react properly. And I've realised when I was running coming back from the injury, because I've still got the little niggle, I feel it in my foot first, and that changes my gait, and that's why it pulls on there. So that's why I got injured. I don't think other than that I would have got injured from the 6, because I have done a shit ton of training this year. Like I said, last year I did 1,000k in total running. This year already I'm almost at 3,000k.
Yeah.
So I've like tripled it in a year, and that hasn't been an accident.
And you're only 3/4 of the way through this year.
Yeah. That wasn't accidental. That wasn't too big of a jump at once. Like, I've managed that very well, alongside 3 to 4 days a week strength training, 3 spin classes a week, 2 strength classes, and like everything else I do. So I'm training like 20 plus hours a week generally.
I was going to say, yeah, that's pretty high volume, right? Like, unless you're talking to triathletes. But it's an interesting one as well, because I've always found with the ultra running, with the running aspect of that training, it does seem to be that it's somewhere between like 8 and 12 hours is kind of the most that most people can do. I mean, there's super elite if you're professional and you can absolutely maximize your recovery and your training age is really high, you can maybe absorb a little bit more. But there does seem to be a certain amount that you can do. But because you're doing all of those different things, it gives you that opportunity to still put in like 20 hours. And I think that's something that probably not many people are going to do the way you're doing it, right?
Yeah. What I do notice, and this is a massive bugbear of mine, is with runners and doing their S&C, they either don't do it, they don't do it right, or they don't do it to the right intensity. So I look at a lot of runners' S&C stuff, and I'm watching them train, and I'm like,
why are you using the 2 kilo dumbbells? Or
yeah, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you're trying to build single leg strength. Say you're doing Bulgarian split squats.
Sure.
And I'm watching them, and they're using, like you're saying, like 10 kilo dumbbells each hand. And I'm like, that's only 20 kilos. Like, your capacity is a lot higher than that. You want to be absorbing forces for like 100 miles. You need that leg strength. And I'm doing like mine at like 80 to 100 kilos.
Are you doing that with a barbell?
Barbell on my back.
Yeah.
And I'm just like...
I think a lot of runners would be uncomfortable trying to use a barbell.
Yeah, but they need to like build that up.
Yeah.
But I just don't see any progressive overload in their training. They're just like, well, this is what Instagram said, or like this is like what my coach has said, or like this is what I feel comfortable doing. And they just stick with that for years. And I'm like, that's okay. It'll get you by for a while. But at some point, you really need to progress it. Like,
yeah.
You need to work on that strength. And I don't see enough runners doing like proper strength training. And that really bugs me. Like, when people watch me train, especially like people that know me only through running, and then they come and see me train, or they'll watch some videos that I post, and they're like, how the fuck are you running and training at that intensity? And I'm like, that's the intensity you need to actually build resilience in your body. Like, you need to be squatting heavy, you need to be doing heavy deadlifts, like the big compound movements. You don't need to be doing Olympic lifts, but I love doing Olympic lifts, so I'm going to do heavy Olympic lifts. It's
interesting on that though. I think the most underutilized exercise for runners is a hang power clean, because I think actually that does everything you need for that, with some explosive kettlebell swings if they're done properly. I see a lot of kettlebell swings done with arms and shoulders and back rather than a hip snap.
Yeah.
But if you learn how to do a proper I mean, I've got kettlebells at home and they go up to 48 kilos, and you do 5 snappy like kettlebell swings with the 48. You know, you feel it, right? And actually, clean and jerk and snatches with a kettlebell, I think, are really, really great power moves. Yeah, you're not probably going to be doing it with a 48, but even like a 28 or a 16, you know, you can get a really good stimulus from something like that.
Yeah.
But it is, I think it's also where you come from, because I was a powerlifter before I was a runner, right? So when you're saying, like, I just did squat, bench, deadlift, everything else, which you kind of do everything else a little bit, but squat, bench and deadlift, right? But I think 10 years of doing that before I got into running is why. So I've been running 5,000 or 6,000 kilometers a year for 5 years with touch wood with no injuries, and I'm sure it's because of that strength base. Because I'm not even doing what I should be. I know I should be doing more in the strength space, but you can't tell somebody who wants to be an ultra runner, can you just take 10 years and go and be a powerlifter first, right?
But the way I look at it is, I see a lot of strength athletes get into running and do well at running. I don't see any runners that are good runners to go into powerlifting and get good at powerlifting.
Yeah.
So
I think it's really hard to do it that way, because you like just the calories of it. Like if you come in with a habit of doing 10 plus hours of running, like you'd need to be on like 5,000 calories a day minimum if you were starting to put in some heavy lifting to have enough calorie excess, let alone the enough protein and all of that stuff and rest to be able to do it.
Yeah, but it's also just like the mindset difference. But it's, for me, like, it would make sense to go into it that way, because you've built such a solid base and your recovery is going to be way better. Like, if you look at powerlifters, and like I was like this when I was powerlifting, I was taking like 5 minutes recovery between sets,
if not more. I sometimes used to do 10-15 minutes, right? Like when you get to heavy doubles on a deadlift, you'd be in the gym for like 2.5 hours and you're like, I've done 8 sets. Like, do you know what I mean? And some of those sets were 2s that made you want to cry, but like...
Have you noticed though, since starting running, you can just recover quicker
100%.
Doing the same thing,
100%,
but your recovery's just better. So then I'm like, this makes more sense, because you can get more load in because you've got a bigger base from running ultras, but just no one does it.
And it's mindset as well, like you said. I think that the mental skills for both, they complement each other, right? Like nobody does 100-mile plus running without going through some pretty horrible lows and some times where you think this is never going to happen. And actually, the journey to getting strong at deadlift, let's say, deadlift was the one I loved. I hate squatting. But, like, it's not straight line, is it? Like, you know, it's predictable that if you train regularly, you'll get stronger, but not week to week. And sometimes you just go in and you're like, you're really weak and you're like, what is going on? And then, but you know, if you keep showing up, you'll break through. And yeah, there's lots of like complex stuff you can do once you do hit that plateau, but going from 0 to 100 kilo deadlift and even 100 to 150 is relatively predictable, right? Like it gets harder to get those extra percentages the heavier it gets. But I think it's sort of, there's a similar mentality with running. Like if you show up and run 3-4 times a week, but you do it consistently for a few years, it's amazing what you can achieve, right?
Yeah. Definitely. I think even like 6 months, like the difference I've noticed in my running from 6 months of dedicated running, well, the 6 and 6 is testament to that. When I signed up, I was absolutely petrified. I was like, when I remember like doing that Zoom call with you, first time we'd ever spoken, and I was like, I have no idea if I can do this. Like, I'm not really a runner, but like I said, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it, and I'll fundraise. And then it got to like a month before the 6, and I was like, oh yeah, I've got this. Like, this is fine. Like, why was I worried? Like, yeah.
But that was part of what motivated you, right? I think as well, like having something that
something that's got to terrify me. But it's got to excite me as well, because there's lots of things that terrify me that don't excite me, and people are like, oh, you should do that. Like, when people first suggested Wild Horse to me, they were like, oh, you should do Wild Horse. You're training for the 6. You'll be fine at Wild Horse. And I just don't get the excitement from it. I'm just like, no. Like, yeah, it's a big challenge. I'd love to take on something that big, but
But it's just a
That's not
single
it.
event, isn't it? It's no good unless you add another 200 and another 200, right?
No, because like at that same time, people were suggesting. Well, I suggested a Pona to myself, and I was like, I'd love to do a Pona.
So what was the difference in your head?
I don't know. I
Is it the
I
route?
can't
Is
explain it.
No?
It just has to click. Like recently, someone was like, "Oh, you should do the spine," and I was just like, "No."
Not interested.
But then, like, anytime someone brings up a Pona, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm excited for a Pona. I honestly can't wait for a Pona. That is for my next challenge. That is the one I'm most excited for.
Yeah.
So
So let's talk about that then. That's
okay.
You've segued nicely.
Yeah.
So what's the next challenge? By the way, as well, so we talked about the 12 challenges, right? Like how far are we through the 12? Which ones count?
So I've done 50 miles barefoot. That
Yep.
was my first one. That was 2023. Same year, I did the Welsh 3000 second attempt, completed it. That's ticked off.
Yeah. Did you do that in soaking wet clothes or?
It was raining again,
But
miserable
you
weather.
didn't sleep in soaking wet clothes that time.
We slept we slept at the summit of Snowdon,
Right.
in the little doorway of the train station, but I had waterproofs. I had
Okay.
actually like invested in some proper outdoor wear.
Yeah.
By that point, I'd learnt my lesson.
So that was number 2.
That was number 2, ticked off. I'm still debating whether number 3 counts or not. That was my tyre flip
Okay.
attempt, because I set out to do a marathon tyre flip. I knew that was too big a challenge, so I was like, if I break because it was like a 2-part challenge. It was like the first thing I wanted to do was break the world record for the greatest distance covered flipping a tractor tyre in 24 hours, which at the time was like 6.9 miles. So I was like, if I get 7 miles in 24 hours, tick that box. And then I was going to keep going until I couldn't go anymore. And I was aiming for a marathon, but I was like, a half marathon I'll be happy with. I didn't tell people that because that doesn't sell on Instagram, fundraising, being like, I'm going to try and flip a tractor tyre for a marathon, but if I don't, a half marathon will do. Like, it's like, I'm going to flip a tractor tyre for the distance of a marathon. Instantly, people's attention are caught. So I use that as like the selling point. But really, like, if I had hit the world record, I think I'd be satisfied and I'd tick it off. But I didn't. I got 6 miles in and I tore my bicep. But I had 9 hours to go. So I was like way ahead of track for the world record. So I know that world record is doable for me.
Do you know what the world record is now? Have you checked it again?
No one's tried it since.
No one's tried it.
One person has tried it since. Tell a lie. Before he actually got to the record attempt, because we were both training at the same time, so I'd had some calls with him as well.
Yeah.
He'd herniated a disc, so he was like, I'm calling it. I'm not even going to bother.
And just for everyone, how heavy was the tyre?
100 kilos.
Okay, so you flip it. So do you know how many flips you did to get to 6 miles?
Yeah, so it turned out perfectly that the size of my tyre and my flipping technique was 1,000 flips was a mile.
Okay.
So it was just perfect.
So 6,000
6,000 tyre flips in 15 and a half hours. That's including like the breaks I'm having to like stop and eat.
So that's
and everything.
60 tons metric.
Yeah. So yeah, quite a lot. So I'm not sure whether I count that as a completed labour or just an attempt that I have to revisit. So
Okay, so let's have that as placeholder number 3.
yep, and then number 4 was the 6 and 6. So yeah, but this next one isn't one of my 12 labours.
Okay, the next one is just
It's personal.
yeah, nice.
Just, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that. What's the next one?
So I'm going to be doing I don't know how people are saying it. Everyone's saying it differently, but I'm saying like the ONA Series.
Lay it down now.
So it's the
ONA Series.
The ONA Series, because it's
Yeah.
Serona,
Yeah.
Epona, Devona.
Yeah.
So I don't know why people are saying ONA, because it's not Epona,
Yeah.
it's Epona. So it's the ONA Series in my head, but
I like it. Okay.
open for debate. But I'm doing the ONA Series back to back. I'm calling it the Triple Centurion because it's the 300 milers. And yeah, it's 300 miles essentially in 6 days because I'm sticking to the cut-off times. So with Devona, that's the last one in the series. I want to show up to the Devona start line and do it with everyone else.
Does Devona, is it a circular or is it a point to point?
The route isn't officially released yet, so
Okay, we don't know yet.
no,
we can't share.
There's some some rumours floating about, and there's a route on Plotter route called Not the Devona. So we're pretty certain that's going to be it. But Reese does love a red herring, so you never know. But yeah, so I know that I want to show up to the start line of that to do the last one with everyone else.
And is it basically 2 days for each one?
It's 50 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I basically just worked out 100 hours before the start time
Is your start.
is my start, which is like Tuesday at like 2 a.m. that week. So that's going to be a rough start time for me. I don't like the early mornings. But then, that then also, because it gets too complicated for me, because people are like, oh, but you have to consider the travel between them and everything. And then they're like, oh, why don't you start on like the Sunday and then do it and then have a sleep like I did for the 6, where I'd come home in between each one, or like go somewhere to sleep. And I'm just like, but that's not within the cut-offs. With the 6, there's no cut-off. And I can do it in a day as long as I start the next day by 7, because that was the official start time. So I'm like, I want to make this as official as possible.
So are you viewing this as like just one continuous 300-mile journey that follows the route of all 3 to some extent?
Yeah, with the drive in between, but the drive has to be done within the cut-off times, because otherwise I'm then adding on time, and then I'm having to figure out, oh, well, now I have to start at Monday night instead of Tuesday morning. And I was like, if I just stick 100 hours before Devona start line, that's my cut-off, whether I have to drive in between that or not. Like,
can I recommend somebody else drives?
Oh yeah, I'm not going to be driving. I'm going to have a crew driving. Shout out mum and dad.
But it'll be continuous. And have you thought about things like? There's lots of different thoughts on this, but have you thought about like sleep strategies and like will you? Because I think on those races, for example, you can get into like a crew vehicle and sleep as long as it's not moving, that sort of thing. Would that be a plan? Or?
So I'm following all the official rules of the event. So I can only get aid from my crew at where the checkpoints would be. I know you can. You technically can get aid outside of that anyway, but like I want to look at it myself and be like, I've done that properly. I'm very strict with standards, like I did at the 6 and 6, where I was like, I can only have crew at the checkpoints. I can have pacers, like people running with me, because at an event you have people running with you. So I was like, people can run with me, but I'm having like I can only have my crew vehicle at or as close to the checkpoints as possible. So I'm going to do the same thing on these. Like that's the only time I can, when because there's sleep stations on these 100-milers, and you're allowed, I think it's like 4 hours at any checkpoint. So that's going to be my same rule. I can have 4 hours, so that's when I would fit in sleep. And then if I finished one early, which I'm hoping I will, and then I get to drive to the next one, then the clock's just a continuous clock, so I keep going. But then if I get to Devona early, then I'm like, well, now I can't start until everyone else starts, so then that's going to be the time where I've banked it and I can sleep
to rest.
So I think that's the only sort of caveat there, is like, if I get to Devona early, what do I do?
Have you run through an entire night before? Because obviously you're 6 and 6, you've done a lot within 6 days, but have you even done 100 in one, like 100 miles in? No.
I've done a backyard ultra where I got to 2 a.m. So it was like 16 hours. So that's the furthest I've run in one go,
which is about
essentially
100k,
it was 66 miles, so just over the 100k mark. And then I've done an overnight ultra, so that started at 6 p.m. and we ran until 6 a.m. and I didn't sleep in that time. I've done some crewing and pacing overnight, so I'm used to like the long nights and stuff, but I've never actually done an event that's gone on all day and then through the night, and I haven't even done 100-miler yet. And everyone's like, oh yeah, but you'll be fine doing 100-miler, you've done 6 in 6 days. And I'm like, it is a bit different when you're going home and sleeping, and you've got people feeding you, and you got people looking after you.
Have you started to think about what the training looks like for that then?
Yeah, I have. So I've already put together a bit of a training calendar. So at least once a month, I'm going to have a big training weekend where both Saturday and Sunday I will be out doing long runs. Whether that's like, it will probably be like back-to-back ultras, because that's the sort of mileage I'm going to need to prepare for a 300.
So it's an interesting one. I'm sure you've started to explore it, but in the same way that like the growth of like the 200, and now like there is actually like there's the monster 300 in the US, like obviously Spine's 268. I say the Spine is a different kind of beast anyway. You got the Winter Downs 200. Like the growth of the 200s is that obviously all of the Pegasus 200 like variants. But I think there's this saying, isn't there, in ultra that like doing 100 miles is like doing 350s, and it's not quite, but I kind of get the sentiment. And there is an argument that like doing 200 is almost like doing 300s, and you're going to do 300. So, you know, there isn't a saying for that, because not many people do 300, but I'm sure there'll be one at some point. But I think it does present some different things around once you start going through multiple nights. I think most people can get through one night. So when you're doing 24 hours, even 36 hours, something like that, like one night, it's tiring, but actually you get that circadian rhythm bump when the sun comes back up. Like, it's amazing how your body comes back. But going into that second night, and then especially the third night. So I've done one where I went through 3 nights, and the first night was kind of okay. Feet were killing me because it was all underwater, but that was more trench foot than anything else. Second night was, I kind of found the second night the most spinny, and it was because the hallucinations were really real. So it was like your brain wasn't sure whether it was real or not. Like, had plenty of times where like a fisherman next to the Thames just disappeared. And it started to get to the point where it was when they were real that it spun me out, because I was so used to running up to a fisherman that then just evaporated. Or like a little boy that was canoeing in a forest. Like, sounds a bit weird now, but like at the time it seemed totally real, and then it turned into a log, like as I'm there. But they seemed really real. But then the third night it was more like, why is there an 80-foot gorilla in the middle of the Thames? Like, there's something in your brain that goes, there's not an 80-foot gorilla, or like an upside down clown, or like do you know what I mean? Like, the things were sort of so far away from reality that I could kind of tell that it wasn't real. But I don't know, there's all of this stuff that goes around about sleep deprivation, how to manage it, and like some people will say actually it's something in the 70-ish hour range that could be done with minimal or little power naps. But I think it's quite individual as well, and it's really hard to train for, because you're burning a lot of candles by doing that. Like, I don't think there's a huge amount you can do that really that benefits, other than having a few plans and just adapting on the fly. But one thing I've done, and there's not much science about it, because I can't imagine anyone getting through like ethics on being able to do these sorts of studies. But something I did in the lead up to a couple of my backyards is I started to try and train myself to do the 4-minute nap. Like, and I genuinely think you can actually train your body to be better at waking up from a 4-minute nap.
Yeah.
So like, I think those sort of trail nap type things, where if you know you're going to be meeting somebody and you can literally jump in a car that could have the heater on, you could do 4 minutes and wake back up. You're not going to get loads, but you can actually get like a mental boost that could last for a few hours. On something that's 300, like, I think you can probably aim for some bigger blocks where you can actually get a full sleep cycle, or even 2 full sleep cycles, right? If you're limiting yourself to 4 hours, thinking that a sleep cycle is roughly 90 minutes. But I don't know, I think it's really interesting, because a lot of people go different routes, and I think a lot of the general thought is just plough through that first night and manage, and then get to some sleep in the second. But I don't know, like there's a bit of me that goes, what if you could just get like a decent sleep, like a 90-minute in that first night, if you could get to sleep? And I think that's the big one that's difficult. But I think if you could get to sleep, I wonder how much that could impact, because the second and third day, like, and for you it could be the fourth and the fifth day, right? Like we're talking a lot of days here. It's not inconceivable to start to move at like 2 kilometers an hour sometimes and stuff like that. And actually, when you, if the sleep would give you more hours at 4 or 5 kilometers an hour, like that can have it can easily pay for itself. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. Bringing up like those little trail naps.
Yeah.
Day 6 definitely.
On the 6 and 6.
On the 6. I had all of the pictures of me from that day are me having trail naps.
Yeah.
And that was, I had people that ran the whole thing with me. Running is a very loose term at this point.
They moved with you.
Yeah, they moved with me for like 15 and a half hours.
What was the distance on the final day?
50k.
There you go.
So
wasn't your fastest 50k?
Wasn't a PB as much as I wanted it to be, because that was the only one of the 6 that I'd done before. That was the Rhythm. So I was like, yeah, I did this last year. I could beat my time. No chance. Over doubled my time. But yeah, so they were with me that day, and that is some of their best memories. Is they were like, and they've done it since, like not the trail naps, but they were like, how many times when we're out running do we just sit down and appreciate what's around us? So like I remember for weeks after the 6 finished, I would get pictures of like James Edwards, who's been on the podcast, just being like, yeah, I'm just sat in a field like enjoying everything. And he's like, this is because of your 6, because like when you were just napping, we would just sit there and just look around and have a chat. And it's like, we don't do that enough.
Yeah.
So like they've brought some joy out of it, but yeah.
It was like the Will becomes a campfire. Like Will's asleep and everyone sits around Will and just
genuinely
has a chat.
Like the pictures that I've got are just me lying like I look like I'm a dead body on the floor.
I've seen a couple,
and then
it
they're
does
just
look
like
that,
crouched down around me. It looks like some proper weird ritual, but no, like that was a saving grace for me. But this is something from the 6 that I wasn't expecting, because I got through all the days so well until that last day where I really needed those little lie downs, and that's when the mental fatigue kicked in. Because when I was talking and everything, I was functioning very well. There were people that were saying things to try and test my cognition, and then when I gave them like a very good response, they were like, oh wow, like you're functioning really well considering like what you're doing. And I was like, well, yeah, like, why wouldn't I? But then there was times when I'd, like, lie down for those trail naps, honestly, 2 to 4 minutes. And then I'd open my eyes, and most of the time I wasn't even asleep, because I'd be hearing the conversations around me, and I'd laugh at the right times and stuff. But then I'd open my eyes, and I'd be confused at where I was. And I was like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on or who these people are. I definitely knew who they were. And I was just like, I know I need to get up and run though. So I would just get up and I would just start running, and people would follow, and it'd give me like 5-10 minutes before I like really realised what was going on. And I was like, okay, no, I'm fine. But then afterwards, so that night I was having a bath, because I'd come off the back of the Edam, seeing you. Yeah. And I got home after the Edam. I knew I had 2 hours maximum sleep before I had to be up for the Rhythm, because it took me so long because of the injury. And I was like, that was the first day where I was like, I'm not showering, I'm not getting out of these clothes, I'm just going to wake up and go maximise my sleep. So I did that, and I was like, after the Rhythm, I was like, I stink, I need a bath. So I just went and lay in the bath, put my head back, closed my eyes, like... I woke up as if it was a trail nap. I jumped out the bath, and then I'm drying myself off, being like, I need to run. And then I was like, why would I be naked and need to run? And then it clicked, like, I'm in the bath.
I'm done now. Yeah.
Like, I don't need to run. And then, like...
Did you have that happen again? Or, like, was it...
Yeah, so, like that bit was like a bit of like a funny, like, haha, like that's funny, like that you did that.
Yeah.
And then the next day I'm at work and I finish my shift and I go to Aldi, which is, it's literally like 200 meters, if that, away from where I work. There's like a road crossing in between, and then there's the shop. So I go to Aldi, I bump into one of my clients and I'm chatting with them, and I was like, do you need help with your shopping? They're like, not from you, like, you're broken, Will, like, you literally finished yesterday. No.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I was like, I'll head back to work, and I was getting lifts places because I couldn't drive because of my leg. So I was walking back to work to get a lift home, and then the next thing I know, I'm running down the cycle path behind work, and I turn around to ask someone for my poles. And then I was like, oh, my crew aren't here. Like, why aren't my crew here? Where's my poles? And I'm in like slippers because I couldn't put shoes on, and it's raining. And I was like, oh, my watch isn't on. Maybe they don't know where I am because they haven't got my tracking link. So I start my watch and I just keep running. And I'm just like thinking, like, I don't know where I'm running. There's no directions on my watch like I've had the past week. And I was like, but I know I got to keep running. So I just kept running. And then I bumped into that same client again. She'd like just picked her kids up from school. She was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm running. And then she was like, are you okay? And I just broke down and I was like, I don't know where I am. And she had to like get her kids in the car, and I'm like burst into tears at this point, and I'm so confused. And I get a message from Jo, and she was just like, because she had access to my tracking link because she was the one sharing it every day.
Yeah.
She was like, Will, what are you doing? And I was just like, I'm running. And she was like, I'm going to come pick you up. Like, stay where you are.
Yeah.
And then I'm with my client, and she's like, do you need me to take you anywhere? I was like, no, I'm fine. And like, Jo pulls up like 5-10 minutes later, and I didn't recognize her. And she could tell that from the car. She was like, we'll get in. And then I just sort of like look at her, and I just get in the car, and I'm like, I don't know whose car this is or who I'm getting in with. And then she was just like, shall I take you home? And I was just like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what's going on. And she was just like, that was like a real moment of like, I've just lost it. Like, I have no idea what's going on.
It's a deep level of like mental fatigue, isn't it? That just, and I think one of the things that you sometimes chase or you get from these massive events is the stripping down to like the simplicity of like, all I've got to do is run.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I've got to do. I've got to run. And like, to complete them, you have to develop that single-mindedness, don't you, to the point that like, I'm going to ignore everything else. I'm, and I'm trusting you. I've said this to a few people, but like your crew that you had that were supporting you, in various ways, was one of the best crews I've seen, and they really did look after you, and I could tell that you trusted them, right? But that basically meant you outsourced your executive function to them, right? And you went, I've got to run. That's it. All I've got to do is run, and everybody else will point me in the right direction. They'll do what I'll know what to do. And like you say, you just follow the watch and run, and everything else will happen around me. And I think that's part of the appeal, because the rest of life is so complex.
Yeah. And I think that's that part of it, because I don't think it was just the habit of the six that took over that day. There was so much other life stress going on that week in particular, like outside of the six, and it's piling on top of the six. It's like all your normal life stress, and then there's like other things going on in my life, and just so much like that was going on in my head that week when I was running was like the best week of my life. Outside of the running bit, it was one of the most stressful weeks of my life. And then afterwards, it was almost like I was delaying that, like getting back to life, and my brain's just like, don't want to deal with this, let's run.
Yeah.
And I just started running.
Well, and I think another thing, and it's not uncommon, and it can take different forms, but like, you're facing all of those life stressors that you probably like you've had before, right? And you've had the resilience to be able to deal with, but your level of reserves is zero now, because you've exhausted them all, right? So it's almost like with the well completely dry, to some degree, your brain's gone, when I was running, there wasn't a problem, so I'll just run.
Yeah. But that was terrifying.
Yeah, I bet.
I'd never experienced anything like that. So then just not like, it took me a while to really realise what was going on and where I was. And it took a lot of people looking after me for me to be like, okay, like, I'm all right. I don't need to run.
I can take some steps back into, like, quote unquote normal life again, or whatever. So that was number 4.
That was number 4.
So we're a third of the way. Okay.
Yeah.
And the ONA
isn't one of them.
That's just a little, like, side project, personal
little
project.
side quest.
Yeah. Which of course is for Sport in Mind.
Yep.
Which again is phenomenal. So bearing in mind, we talked about, I thought it was really interesting that by complete chance, the fact that you're ending up recording your 100th podcast and it's you in the hot seat, like, it would have been a cool thing to design. I know we didn't do it at all, like, we had no idea. But, like,
yeah, and we haven't even spoke about that. So this is actually the 100th recorded episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast, but it's not going to be the 100th released episode.
Correct.
So
when are we releasing?
I don't know. It might actually be.
We'll find that out.
Yeah,
you
we'll
can put
find
that
out,
in the intro.
Yeah, I'll put it in the intro. But 100th actually recorded episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast,
which is pretty cool. That's a pretty big achievement, right? Like, that's some consistency.
Yeah. Never thought I'd make it here, honestly. That's almost 2 years of weekly releases. I've been doing this for like 2.5 years now, and I have done a weekly release, but then I had a gap when I moved from my flat into this house, because this room didn't look like this before, and I wanted it to, when I moved and wanted to do the podcast, I wanted it to be better. So I invested in cameras, better lighting, better microphones, everything. And there's actually decoration. And people don't hit their head when they come in the podcast, because the old one was in like a attic room, and you'd have to like duck round to get in the chairs and everything. So yeah, this is a big upgrade.
Yeah, nice. And, you know, like, now you're getting into the hundreds in terms of running and podcasting. So you're doing 300, so you've got to go at least 300 podcasts. It's like an obvious link. So if this gets released, then we think it might get released potentially on World Mental Health Awareness Day.
Yep.
So what's happening around that?
So with that, and I'm sure I'll be talking about this in the intro, because I want to get as much awareness around it as we can. Sport in Mind have set out the challenge of doing 100k over 10 days, either as an individual or as a team, and you can run, walk, cycle, however you want to do it. It feels weird telling you about this, because obviously you know, but
it's all good. We're talking to all the millions of people who are going to listen to this as well.
So yeah, that's the challenge. We've got a Run Talk Run group team that are doing that 100k, but you set that up and I was like, yeah, cool, like, that'll be easy. Like, I could do that on my own. Like, you could definitely do it on your own. Probably all of our team members could do it individually, like getting the 100k in the 10 days. And then you was like, there's a leaderboard. And that just, Sweet. I was like, okay, right, how are we going to win this then? So me and you have been back and forth a little bit, and I had the idea of linking it to the fundraising, because obviously we're trying to fundraise. That's a big part of what we're trying to do.
And actually, I should have said there's 2 leaderboards. So there's the team leaderboard for distance, and there's a leaderboard for fundraising.
Oh, okay. That's even better.
There you go.
Okay. So this works perfectly for me and my idea, because for every £1 donated to the fundraiser, we're going to cover a kilometre as a team. So we've said it as a team. Originally, I was going to say it for myself, but then I was like, if someone donates £1,000, like, I'm not covering 1,000k. That'd be harder than my 6 and 6. So I was like, as a team, that'd be manageable. And I actually kind of want it to get a bit silly.
Yeah, I'm on the knife edge as well. I've been trying to work it out and thinking, because originally I thought I'm going to just run, but then I thought, actually, if the true goal here is to try and help more people, right? The more money we raise, the more sessions Sport in Mind can achieve, the more people who are struggling with mental health can get access to sports, physical activity. So with that in mind, I was like, okay, if I stick to running, like there's a limit just from time. Like you've got a job to do, I've got a job to do. There's only so many hours in the day you can run and not break, because we've got to keep it going for at least 10 days, right? So, but because it's 100k your way, so we can include cycling, we can include some other stuff. I think we could push up to quite a big number if we had to. And so the call to action, and I'm sure we'll both be doing this on socials and stuff in the lead up, is just like, if we can motivate people to donate a little or a lot, then it just makes it a sillier challenge for us. And perhaps we're having to get up at 4 a.m. and do a couple of hours on a spin bike, and all of these different things to try and get to a big number. I do want it to be
like a rough week for me.
Yeah.
I'm already like thinking, right, how early can I feasibly get up, go for a run, cycle to work, do my job, cycle home? How much more can I fit in to that?
And still recover
and still recover and manage to keep that up for 10 days on top of doing like ultras on the weekend, like we've been talking about. And like we've got the Endure 24 relays on the Saturday.
Yeah, so that'll be day 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it's like, right, we've got that, so we need to fit that in, and I need to consider travelling to London, and I'm like, oh, could I run there? Like, and I'm like, no, that would be too much fitting with work and everything, like you're saying. So I've been planning logistics. I know you've been planning logistics, and it's just, I hope that the fundraising meets our expectations. But for me as well, I don't know if you and the team are on board with this. I've got my like mega fundraiser. So Adventure Athletes are doing a year-long fundraiser where anyone can set a challenge and fundraise, and it goes into the one pot. So it's taking the pressure off individuals to fundraise and putting it as like a team effort. So then they're not disappointed when they're like, oh, I've only raised £50. They look at the total over the year and like, oh, we've raised like £10,000, and it's like a massive group effort. And I want that to feed into the challenge as well. So I know I'm going to be pushing that for my fundraiser. And I know that one of my clients, Cheryl, she signed up to her first half marathon, and she's already been fundraising, and there's £100 in there already.
That's ace. Well, there's £100 on my page as well. So we're already at 200.
Yeah.
So if, we're already at 200 Ks, and the challenge was officially 100K. So, and I think we both said, right, like from our perspective, it was like the minimum was going to be 100K each, given that you can do it as an individual and take on 100K. I actually did the pilot version of this virtual challenge last year, and we did 100K. But it timed out with a 100-mile ultra that I was doing, so I ended up like with quite a big number. But so it'll be interesting to see what happens this time around. I've been trying to play with like, is there any way to do 100K a day for 10 days, and then like, but. So I don't know. But we might find out if people are generous and get behind it and want to donate. I think, but there'll be an element of if we could raise more than like $2,000 or something on this, then there's going to be a point where we have to go like we can't actually break ourselves. But I really hope that we get a good amount and a good challenge in here.
I want it to get ridiculous, and even if we can't live up to expectations,
we'll give it a good go.
Fundraising is like the main thing, and then that just gives me the motivation to get up at silly o'clock and push myself.
For sure. I'm already planning to do like any Zoom meetings that week. I'll be on my spin bike. I've set up a little laptop level, and I'm like, I can probably tick off 15 or 20k an hour. Yeah. Like, I reckon I could do 15k an hour and be able to breathe well enough to function on a Zoom meeting.
And I'll commit to like, if it does get silly, say we get like $5,000 raised and we only manage to cover 2,000 kilometers.
Only 2,000.
Yeah. Then it's like that other 3,000. I will keep going.
We'll find a way to
cover the distance, no matter what. Like, it will take me longer than the 10 days, but I will keep going until that distance is covered somehow.
I like that. Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, I don't want people to be like disappointed and being like, oh, well, you said you'd do this distance and you haven't. Like, I'll find a way of doing it.
We've just accidentally launched our 1,000,000-kilometre challenge. Right?
This is going to be bigger than my 300 miler. I might as well do that in the time.
We can roll it in if we're still going. That's ace, and I love it. And the thing about that challenge, and it's what we were hoping for, is that there's something for everyone there. So if you're currently not moving and you're looking to just try and get a bit active and do something with friends, you can sign up as a team of 4 for that. You sign up for free, commitment to raise £50 per person, but so 4 of you raise £200, and you could go for a 2.5k walk a day as a team and just build a little bit of a movement habit. Break that habit of not moving.
Yeah.
If you're confident and comfortable to run or walk or cycle or swim, you can couple of K a day or 5K every 2 days, and you can hit that target. So it's really about what the aim is, to try and get people moving, but it opens up the possibility to get a little bit silly if you want to as well. So it's kind of it's something for everyone within it.
This is where I think it could get quite silly if we're including my team fundraiser, because not only do I want them to like donate, is I want my adventure athletes community, so like you listeners or like the guys I PT and stuff, I want them to get involved with the giant fundraiser, so they can join in the challenge, or they can set their own challenge in those 10 days or whatever, and then fundraise into that one, and then that makes me do more myself while they're also fundraising. So they're doing like a good thing, they're getting active, they're doing something that's a challenge for them, and they're fundraising, and then that makes me have to run more.
So, perfect.
So if any of you guys listening want to jump on a team, like message me, I can link people together and stuff and get some more adventure athlete teams on the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of those as well. Like if you're, going back to your big challenge for the year, like it's easier to raise a lot of money over the course of a year of having lots of small achievable goals than it is to go for something huge, right? Like sometimes an idea takes fire and raises loads of money, but actually and this is the whole point with the virtual challenge, right? We'd like to get to a point where every year it's just something where the Sport in Mind community can get together, take on a challenge, make it their own. I've got a personal friend of mine who's like, he's recently got into a bit of swimming, and so he's going to do, I think he's aiming to do like 10k a day running, but 1k swimming as well or something, and like kind of mix and match with that. And
that would be a cool idea. Daily triathlon.
That's it, almost. Yeah. So I mean, that would be. Yeah, that would be the easiest way to get like big volume, I reckon. Maybe that's for next year.
I'd need to learn to swim first, as I keep saying on like every podcast episode. Like I really do need to learn to swim.
Do you not swim at all?
I don't swim, no. I need to.
That's interesting. Do you know, I had a call today with somebody who's raised money for Sport in Mind, and he created his own triathlon. He did the Ultra Challenge 100k around the Isle of Wight. Then he did Land's End to John O'Groats on a bike, and he swam, I think it was 12 or 13 miles across Lake Windermere, and that was his sort of mega triathlon that he's done within a 12-month period, and he raised money for Sport in Mind. But yeah, that was pretty. I think it was between 6 and 7 hours of swimming in Lake Windermere, like, which seems. Yeah, I can do the running. I used to swim, but like pool swimming, but I've not done the open water thing. But maybe that ticks the box of being enough like jeopardy for you to be a big challenge.
There's some things on the cards with
I see
swimming challenge. I got a couple ideas. One of them was I wanted to do an Ironman, because I was like, oh, that's like a big thing.
Have you heard of Ultraman?
I have, yeah. But I spoke to Bob Thomas about it. This was ages ago when I first set my labours, and I was like, yeah, Ironman's on there. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, Ironman? Like, he was like, yeah, like, I've done Ironman. Like, he's like, that's not a challenge worthy of this list. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, it's just a big branding thing. Like, get that out of your head. Like, let's do something different. And he's thrown me some ideas.
Nice.
But when I first, like, most people, when I used to have a whiteboard on my wall in the old flat, and I had it just all 12 written out, and every time people came around, I was like, yeah, this is my 12 labours, and like I hadn't ticked any off, or like I might have ticked the first 2 off or something. And everyone that came on the podcast, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm working towards. And everyone was like really impressed, being like, oh, wow, that's going to be amazing, 12 years. And like, there's so much on there. And Bob Thomas was the first person that came over and just like shat all over it. He was just like...
Just wiped off most of them.
He just looked at it, it was like, no. Like 4448 was on there. And he was like, I wrote it before I did any of them. And then I did the 50 mile barefoot, and then I did the Welsh 3000s. And he just looked at that and he was like, why is this on there? And I was like,
it's like a tough training
challenge.
And
then he was like, look, compared to what you've already done, that's nothing. Like 48 miles in 48 hours. You did a 50 mile barefoot walk in 24 hours. Like, yeah,
it's a bit of a
take
step
that
down,
off.
Will. Get that off.
And I looked at it and I was like, shit, he's right. So I did. I wiped them off and I wrote new ones. And then I went for the tyre flip one, and then I like looked at some of the others and I was like, I'll tweak them. And then I did the 6, and I looked back and I was like, I have to take a lot of these off now, because they're not pushing me. They served a purpose back then, and I was like, for me,
it lit
2
fire,
years
right?
ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago, they would be massive. But now, like this year, I did 4448 as training for the Backyard Ultra, and I was like, Backyard Ultra is way harder than a 4448, like. And that wasn't even my main challenge this year. So I'm like, yeah, the sort of level that the crossbar's been raised.
Yeah. So I have a theory as well. I think I haven't properly tested it, but I've done it a little bit. I think the backyard style could actually be the secret to unlocking like big distance training that you can recover from. And so
100%.
when I've trained for backyards, I will quite often start to do a process where I run 4 miles and I walk for a bit, and I run 4 miles and I walk for a bit. I don't necessarily take until the whole hour, because it's just life, right? But I think if I was professional, whatever, athlete, right, and that was all I was doing, I'd love to experiment with how much volume can your body take on a daily basis if you did it in that style, because I've done 3 now, and I don't think there's a way to do, like the first one I did 28 hours, and I was convinced I was injured. Like the internal voice convinced me that it was time to stop, sort of thing. I timed out. I didn't stop in the chair, but realistically, my body ratcheted down and told me it was hurt, and it really wasn't. But like having run 113 miles. Within a week, I was running fine again, and I was like, well, I definitely wasn't at my limit at that point. But I do think there's some magic in that, like, consistent, like, rest within the training.
Yeah. And
we've been doing that in weight training, like cluster sets, right, and things like that for years. And, like, why wouldn't it apply to running training? And it's, you know, there's this weird thing. I talk to a lot of Run Talk runners who are like just getting into their journey, right? Just learning how to run 5K. And how does Couch to 5K go? Like it's run, walk. But there's almost like this bravado or this story people tell themselves. It only counts as running if you run the whole way. But if you detach from that, right, which ultra runners are great at detaching from that, because it's like, nah, we walk, like it's just part of it. And but I do think there's a lot in the endurance space, because I look back at my last one, and I timed out, I think it was 20 or 22 hours, and my average heart rate was 125 for the whole thing. Like it was, you know, low end of zone 2 sort of thing. And it's like there's some magic to that. And again, I was running again within like 3 days, and feeling all right, you know, whereas I can do a hard 50 miler and it might take a few weeks to start to feel okay again. So I think there's some stuff there, and I would actually also think it's the best way to test, like say running through the night or trying to do a sub 24 hour 100 mile.
I think Canham from the Pegasus events is testament to that in a way, because if you look at a lot of the people that do well at that, like I talked to like Lee Davies and like Simon Malley, who have both like podiumed it, and they both say like their tactic was, I'm going to run a bit, I'm going to walk a bit, and that's how you're keeping like that consistent pace. Yeah, the canal, because it's just you're following a canal.
Yeah,
and it's very easy to like go hard because you're used to hilly ultras, and you do this flat one, and it's really easy to go hard and then be like, I've blown up.
Yeah,
And then you just stop, or you slow down, or like something happens. Whereas like they've both podiumed it, and they're like, yeah, I would run a bit and then I would walk a bit, and like their timings are different, but like
same approach. It's Centurion. I love the Centurion organisation. For me, Centurion's very similar to the Pegasus community, but just,
English,
yeah, been around a bit longer and that sort of thing. And they do have cut-offs. Like it's a slightly different approach, I suppose. But they great community, great aid stations. Very well organised. But the Thames Path 100 mile catches so many people out, and consistently every year a lot of people take it on as their first 100 miler, thinking, oh, it's flat, that'll be good. And I think it's the hardest thing to do. And the number of people who get to 50 miles on like record pace, and they're not going to set a record right by the time it gets to the end of the 100, and the number of people that drop out at 75 miles into that race because they've just so overcooked the first half. It starts in London, so you're running on tarmac basically, and perfectly groomed like Thames Path at the start, and you finish in Oxford, so you start to get to some of the more, depending on how the weather's been, it can be a bit sloshy and muddy, and if not, it's at least trail as opposed to hard packed. But so many people overcook that, and you find consistently the people who do well at that are the ones that pace it and put in, because there's no break for your body, is there? If you've got ups and downs, your biomechanics are working differently, your muscles are working differently. And I know in your head you hate the uphill, and you can't wait for a downhill. You get to the downhill and your quads hurt, and you can't wait for an uphill. And
I was the opposite on the 6.
Really?
Because the uphills didn't hurt, whereas the downhills hurt my injury.
Right.
So when I
wanted that uphill.
People would see me like on day 6, and I was like running the uphill at like a 6-minute K pace, and they were like, we weren't even expecting to run today, and you're running uphill, and then it would get to a downhill, and I'd be like a little fairy, like, oh, can't do that.
Hurts. Yeah.
And I usually love a downhill, but like, yeah, consistently I was running the uphills throughout the 6. That was what people have noticed the most about me. Yeah. But like you're saying, it's just different. Like, it works different things. If the uphills hurt my injury, I would have probably been running the downhills more.
Yeah.
It's just that just shows that there is a difference in how your body's working, because I could run uphill, but I could barely walk down. And flats were just flat. But yeah, there's a lot of... That's why I like trail so much, is because it's so varied. I hate the flat, boring. Like, I'm doing Cardiff half. I'm dreading it.
So am I.
I really don't want to do it. I'd have done it by the time this comes out, but I really don't want to do it. Yeah, it's what it is.
You got some clients running?
I do, and at first I was meant to be pacing one of them. They're not my client anymore, and they haven't done the training to get the goal they wanted. So then I'm like, well, I'm not going to pace you for that. And then one of my other clients now, I was chatting to him last night actually, and I was like, I've always wanted a 130 half, and he's like, I haven't hit a 130 half, let's go for it. And I was like, I haven't done a road half since Cardiff half 2019. So,
and what did you run then?
That was my 146.
Okay.
But I didn't train for that, and I've done a lot of running this year, so I should definitely be quicker. But I've also trained for the 6, so I haven't done any
speed work at all.
I did a set of 400 meter repeats around the track like 2 days ago. That's been my speed work pretty much.
Bit of fine tuning.
Yeah, so I don't think I can keep up a 130 half pace, but if I get it, then in my head I'm like, I never have to do a road half again. So,
89.59 on the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's why I'm going for it, because everyone's like, you haven't trained for this. I'm like, I know, but I just don't want to do a road half again. Like, I just want to tick it off. So I'll give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? Like, it's a
nice.
half.
It's a bit of training, isn't it, for the virtual 2000?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Or whatever
shame
it
it
ends
doesn't
up
even
being.
count for the distance. I thought that when I did that 50k the other day. I was like, oh, I'm gutted this doesn't count, but you know.
It's all part of the training, isn't it?
Yeah, this is like a fun little thing for you. So just before the 6, I was like, in my head, I was trying to figure out how many ultras I'd done this year. So before this year, I'd only done 3 over a 5-year span, which I hadn't trained for. And then this year, so far, I've done 17 now.
Wow.
Just in this year. Whether that's like training run ultra or like an actual event, or something like Tenerife, because I did Tenerife, that's 40 mile.
Yeah.
So I count that. Before the 6, I thought I had done more than I had. So I was like, after the 6, I think I'll be at about like 18 or 20. So then I was like, if I do 4 more, then I've done 24 in a year. So that's averaging 2 a month. And then I had that in my head. And then after I did the 50k on Sunday, I was like, I'll figure it out properly. And I was like, including the one I've just done, I've only done 17. So I've still got 7 more to do this year. So for me, the Sport in Mind stuff is encouraging me to hit that 24 because I can fit a couple of ultras in. But I find it fascinating because last year or 2 years ago when I was doing the podcast, there were people that I were getting on that like were doing the slam, and I was like, you've done 6 ultras in a year? Like, wow. And then there was someone else I had on that did an ultra a month for the year. And I was like, you've done 12 ultras in 1 year. And he was like, yeah. And like, I was like, that is worthy of the podcast. And it still is, don't get me wrong. But now comparing that to where I'm at now, where I'm like, well, I'm trying to hit 2 a month for the year. And it's just like that growth that's happened for me. And I do put it all down to doing the podcast, because although I was sort of on this track anyway, the podcast is just like, yeah.
Do you know what the world record is for consecutive ultras?
It's going to be something silly.
And it's 200 days. 200 days of 50k a day or more.
Wow.
And that was Candice Burt. So she's the race director for...
Isn't there someone doing the record
Tahoe.
now?
There might be, yeah. There usually is.
I think I've seen... I
Tahoe,
think it's an
Tahoe
Australian
240... was it Cocodona 250? No, Cocodona 250 is a different race director, isn't it? Different race company. I don't know. Anyway, there's a series of 3 200s. Bigfoot 200, Tahoe, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but that's all Candice's race company. But she's done 200 days of 50k a day.
Fair play.
So there you go.
I mean, if I could afford to do that and work and everything,
I've thought the same. I don't know how you manage to do it. Like, I think, yeah, because you like to absorb that as well. Like, you can't look at it and go, oh, I'll do a 4 or 5 hour. Like, it's going to be longer, isn't it? You're going to have to go like backyard style, I think, and put in more breaks and stuff. But I don't know. It feels like it's a little bit like when Sean Conway like finished his back-to-back Ironmans, right? And it was like he was flipping a coin, wasn't he, to see when to stop. And you wonder, like, it's because he would have been doing most of that in zone 1, zone 2, and it was literally just a balance of like, can you keep your heart rate low enough, the calories high enough, and do it fast enough to have enough sleep. And it's those 3 things, really, wasn't it? Like, just does make you wonder, like, what's possible if literally that's the only thing you have to do.
This is a challenge that I really want to do. I'd need to take time off work, which is why I haven't committed to it. Yeah. And the funding to go behind it would be unreal. But I'm going to put it out there in case anyone
wants to jump in and
wants to fund me do it.
Yeah.
Just hopefully no one steals my idea. But I've been looking up FKTs recently, and I was like, what's the longest FKT like close to me that I think is achievable? and there's one that is it's the Great British Coastal Line.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a whole lap of the UK going on the coast, and the current record is done by Lindsay Bell, who I'm trying to get on the podcast. She's just like a through hiker, so she just walks and walks.
So does that count? That's not Ireland, right? That's just, or is it Ireland as well?
No, not Ireland.
So mainland. So
mainland.
Wales, Scotland, Ireland.
England, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, Wales, Scotland, England. Yeah.
So she just walked it, and she did it in like 298 days or something. And she was like, in that time, I took like 52 rest days or something along those lines.
Because Nick Butter did that as well, right? Didn't he? I think.
If he has, I haven't seen it on the FKT site.
Oh, interesting. Because he's the guy he ran a marathon in every country in the world, 196.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he did the British coastline as well. But I've got the book actually. I'll check it out and see how quickly he did it.
Yeah.
But there must be some to count as an FKT. I don't know whether it's like
there's some like
there's
rules
probably
and
like crude and
stipulations
non-crude and which route you take and stuff.
So I was looking at that and I was like, I reckon I could do that in 200 days. And then I figured out that would be 50k a day for 200 days.
Yeah.
So,
I think Nick Butter was aiming for 100k a day. So it was definitely quicker. But there is a piece around when you get into Coast Pass of like, can you get a ferry across? Do you know what I mean? When the water comes inland, and then like when does the timer stop if you've got to wait, or like can you get a lift round if you've missed the ferry, or like there's all sorts of little technicalities.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fundamentally it's going to take a while. Like we had somebody cycle it for Sport in Mind, Katie. Shout out Katie, she's amazing. She's down in Cornwall, and she did the coastline on a bike. I can't remember, but I think that was a couple of months to do it still on a bike. You know, she's a good bike rider. You know.
Yeah.
But it'd be a cool thing to do.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
I'd applied for like a few funding grants for it, but I didn't get any of them. But
have you tried Hardest Geezer? Because he's got an adventure grant.
It was the Give Star grant.
Give Star. Yeah.
Yeah, I went for that one, and I went for the Huel one. So
yeah.
both linked with Hardest Geezer.
Yeah.
Didn't get them.
I've got
unfortunately.
I've got a worm that won't go away in my head, and it's left to right across Russia.
Oh wow!
Like, cause if you look at a map, it's like the biggest distance you can do in one country.
Yeah.
Like, geopolitically, it's a little bit tricky. But that won't go away. But I think it's been done on a bike, but I don't know whether anyone's actually done it on foot.
Yeah.
It's not grown big enough yet, but 2 young kids, I'm going to have to wait until, because that's not going to happen fast, is it?
Yeah, no. What a challenge.
Be cool though, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Yeah.
There's so many challenges out there. It's so hard to... You just got to find the ones that excite you. And like I'm saying, there's no reasoning behind what excites me. Because when I've said that to people, because people are like, you should do the Welsh Coastal Path, and I'm like, I hate coastal running. But the Great British Coastal Path, I'm like...
It's a big enough challenge that you'd get over it.
Yeah, but everyone's still like, why would you want to do that if you hate coastal running? Like, because I had people, when I'd done the 6, they were like, oh, you should do Serona. And I'm like, oh, I don't like the look of it, because it's coastal. And then they're trying to like justify me, like, oh yeah, but like you're a good runner, and like it's not all coastal, and I'm just.
But
like,
then going back
care.
to like the hardship aspect of the whole challenge, it's a little bit like that worm around swimming, right? Because you can't swim.
Yeah, but there's something about swimming that, like, there's challenges around swimming that excite me. That's like, the hardship is only half the equation, because I could just go out and do loads of hard things and just be miserable,
right,
and not feel excited about doing them.
Yeah, there has
to be that excitement for me to want to do it. I was the same in school. So when I was in school, I was very academic. If I wasn't interested in what you were teaching me, I would not care. I just couldn't. it wasn't that I like couldn't learn it. Like I just didn't want to.
Just completely switched off.
So I remember doing my A levels and I did human biology, and on 2 of the exams I think I got like A's, and then the third exam there was a whole bit on it on photosynthesis, and I was like, I'm doing human biology for a reason. Like I don't care about plants. Why am I doing a whole chapter on photosynthesis? So then I just scrapped that exam and didn't do very well. But I just didn't care.
Yeah.
And there has to be something that excites me about it. Otherwise, I just will not do it.
Yeah.
No matter like what it is. It doesn't matter how beneficial it might be for me either. Like, it could be like the best thing in the world for me. If it's not exciting, I refuse. I just can't get around that. So challenges are the same. If it excites me, I'll do it. Even if it doesn't make any sense, like I'm excited about it. Like, and that's how I've always tried to live as well. Like I've had so many jobs because I'm like, what excites me? This job isn't exciting me anymore. I'm not getting any fulfillment from this. I'm done. I want to go do something else. And then I'll just go and do something completely different. Yeah, that's just how I live my life.
I love it. So I don't know, is there anything... We've covered some cool stuff today. I think we've been going for like 7 hours or something. But, and I'm sure we could keep going, but like, I don't know, is there anything else, given this is your 100th episode, right? Like, is there anything else you want to tell us about, tell anyone about, get off your chest? Any question that you wish you'd asked one of your guests that I can now steal and ask you?
Honestly, no, because I don't plan my podcast. And I always tell people when they come on, like, I'm the last person that should have a podcast because 1, I don't like the attention on me, like we've discovered. 2, I have loads of tech issues. I have no idea what I'm doing. I wing everything. 3, I do no research. I've had guests on where someone suggested that they come on and I've known nothing about them, and they've turned up at my house, because this is all done in my house. Like, they've just turned up and I've just been like, nice to meet you. And then they're like, oh, have you got like any questions prepped? I'm like, nope. I've got that one question at the start, which I ask everyone, which you asked me. And that's it. And then everything else is just genuinely my curiosity, just asking them. Most of the time that works in my favour. Sometimes I might just be having a bad day and I can't get my brain to function and it goes horribly wrong because I've got nothing prepped. I like to think those episodes still go well and do the guest justice, but I know sometimes, well, a lot of the time I feel like I could do a better job, but I honestly wouldn't change it. But the flip side of that then is I often then don't remember what the conversation's been about. As bad as that sounds, there's always like a feeling or a thought that I come away with that sticks with me. But if you ask me to tell you about any of my podcasts, I would not have a clue where to start. Like, yeah.
Fair play.
Unless there's like, I've had like Nathan Hutton on after he won a Pona and like that was the theme of the podcast, then I can tell you that podcast was about a Pona. If you ask me what we spoke about within the podcast, no idea. So
fair play.
Yeah. I don't overthink it at all. Like, after the podcast is done. And again, this is something I tell people, is I'm amazed people listen to this. I have no idea why anyone wants to listen to me talk. I get why they want to listen to the guest talk, but like it is essentially just, it started off as I wanted to not feel so alone, because I always felt strange. And again, it was me feeling different because I couldn't connect with people with the way that I thought. Because I would, like, 2019, when I was doing all those things, after my ultra, a few weeks later, I climbed Penavan with a couple of my mates and I found a rock at the bottom. So I was like, let's carry this rock to the top. And then we got to the top and then I was like, right, let's go barefoot down and let's jump in the river afterwards, do a cold dip. And I went straight to work from that, and I was telling people, well, I wasn't bragging about it, but people were like, oh, what have you been up to today? I was like, I've just been up Penavan. They're like, it's snowing. And I was like, yeah, we just did like a bit of barefoot stuff and jumped in the river. And they're like, they'd always, and I hate this word, and this is one reason why I really like Sport in Mind, the word crazy. Like, you've got the Mad Headlines campaign. I hate being called crazy. When people are like, oh, that's crazy, what you're doing is crazy, oh, you're crazy. I cannot stand that because of my mental health issues. Like, I really struggle when people say that, and I'm like, I'm not crazy, like, and I just want to be seen as normal. So
what
when
can I just and not wanting to like make it too hard, but just to scratch on that a little bit, because I think it's actually really important. And like, please, if you don't want to talk more about it, please say so. But I think that's really important, because especially in the podcast industry on Instagram, it's like, and ever since the Mad Headlines stuff came out, and we've got all of that on the website if anyone wants to look at it, but it's all around how media portrays or uses language around sports and performance. And it's so prevalent in sports media, but it's actually even, I think, multiplied exponentially when you look at Instagram, when you look at podcasting world, and the use of the words crazy and insane. And since my radar to those words has gone up significantly since
I catch
since
myself saying it as well.
we do, right? But I think it's because as humans we mirror what's going on around us, and it's become so pervasive now to describe an amazing feat of whatever it might be, or a big challenge or a big achievement, as crazy or insane. And I really like the Rich Roll podcast, right? Which I know is one of your competitors. But, Rich Roll, who I think is a really great podcaster, asks very intelligent questions.
Phenomenal.
Is obviously gets incredible guests on. And I was listening to a podcast on the way here, I think, and I was just suddenly dialed into the fact you are saying crazy and insane every other sentence about to describe an incredible athlete, a multiple time, like 5-time Olympian swimmer. She's incredible. Like, one of the most, I think, the American athlete that's been to the most Olympiads, right? Like, if you were ever going to use that terminology, it probably isn't miles from, like, it really is the extreme end of what's achievable, for an Olympic swimmer. But the fact that we've got so used to using insane and crazy, nobody thinks about what actually happens for a person who might want to not feel that way about themselves. So, sorry, I've gone off on a monologue there, but like, I'd just love to get just scratch on that a little bit. Like, when you hear that, especially if it's describing something that you're doing right, that's a sort of a really important part of your own mental health journey. Like, what happens for you when you hear that kind of language?
So for me, a lot of it was before I had any idea about my mental health issues when I was a kid. So, like, they expect that my mental health issues kicked in when I was about 11. And I didn't go and get any form of, like, I didn't get checked out at all until I was about 18. So they, like, backtrack and was, like, asking me questions about my past. And that, like, 10, 11 is when it sort of, like, manifested itself, as far as we're aware. And in that gap, obviously there's a lot going on in your life anyway, and I've said I hate feeling different, but there was things that were going on in my head, and that was when I really started to notice that other people weren't going through similar experiences to me, and I hated that. And it did make me feel like I was crazy. And when I hear that word, it's like the first thing that comes to your head is like an insane asylum. And I've got family members with mental health issues. I've got really close friends with mental health issues and things like that. And some are way worse than what I've got. And I just, when I get described like that, it just makes me feel small, and it makes me feel like I'm not normal and that I can't have normal experiences. And I struggle with that enough anyway with my mental health. Like, I have experiences that I can't describe to people because they don't understand. and it makes me feel different and like unworthy at times, and just like this whole flurry of emotions and thoughts and feelings that, from what I understand, a lot of people don't get, or they don't get to the same depth that I get. It doesn't take them to the same place, and it just reinforces that I'm different and that I can't lead like a normal life. And it actually just like, it sets off like an instant depression with me, like hearing that word being used towards me. It really sends me spiraling, and I start overthinking, and it's literally been to the point where someone said it as like a throwaway comment in like the morning, where I've like gone to the gym to do a class, and someone's seen that I've done like a 50k, and then they're like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, it's not. And it gets to the point where like I won't then sleep that night, because I'll be lying in bed and it's been on my mind all day, and I'm like, is it crazy? And I'm like, am I crazy? Is there something wrong with me? Can I change this? Why am I doing this? Why am I like this? Should I not be running 50Ks? And then I'm like, but I've got a challenge to train for. And like, that's what I'm thinking about when I'm out running. And then I get back, and then people are like, oh, that's crazy. Or they're like saying all these other things about me, and it makes me feel bad for doing it. And then I'm just like, it makes me feel like I shouldn't be like that. And I don't think anyone should be made to feel like that. That's my experience of it. And it makes me not want to do the things that I do, even though the things that I do are what inspires people and helps people. And that sort of brings me back to why I started the podcast, because I couldn't get that connection with people because I would just be described like that. And then I was like, I just want to meet more people that understand me. And I think, because Reese Jenkins was like about the 6th month mark for me, and I used to do this podcast with my friend Taylor. He stopped coming for like his own reasons, and then I've just like kept it going. He stopped after like 3 months, and then 3 months of doing it on my own, I was getting overwhelmed. I was like, I think I might stop this. Like, I'm not getting out of it what I wanted to. And Reese was like the first time where I was like, he gets it. Like, I didn't have to say anything. The words he was saying to me and describing things, I was like, oh, he gets it. Like, yeah. I never expressed that to him either. But then that was the fire that's like kept this going, because I was like, there are people like that. And then I've met more people like that. But no matter how many people like that I meet, it still has that effect on me when people say that. And where my challenges escalate, the people that I thought connected with me now see what I'm doing now, because it has been like exponential growth. Then they start seeing that, and then they're like, oh, that's crazy what you're doing. And I'm like, I thought you got it, and it doesn't feel like you do anymore. And then especially since my 6, like, I have felt that separation again, where it's like, I'm now removed and people think that I'm crazy, and it's very isolating.
And I thank you for sharing. Like, I think it's a really important thing, because actually having that out there, having that described in that way, because I genuinely don't think a single person who said that to you means it to have that impact or that effect on you. And it just shows how important language is, right? Because actually it's most likely being described, and they're used to that language being used to describe something that's an incredible achievement.
Yeah.
And so they're going, this is an incredible achievement, Will. Like, you've raised money for an amazing cause. You've raised the profile of that. You've created something not just for you, but for the community there, for everyone else. I think I shared with you, like, I was lucky enough to be the guest director at the Edam, right? And so I literally shook hands or gave a hug to everyone who finished that race, right? From the first male, first female to the final finisher, which I absolutely loved. It was like, again, linked to Reese. Right? Reese is a very special guy. And I've got a lot of time for him and Keris and everything that Pegasus do. But being able to just pretend that I was a race director for the day was an incredible experience. and I got to speak to everyone, and especially the earlier finishers, so the kind of more elite level of the field. They tend to come in, there's quite a long gap, and they're the only one around, right? So I got a good chance to chat to them all, and everyone was really interested, excited, and somewhat in awe of what you were doing. Like, you came up in conversation a lot with all of these people, and there was several of the people who were, podium finishers who wanted the details and donated to you, and like were really excited and interested, and like, how's he doing? Like, where is he? Like, how's it all going? And so the reach of what you're doing and what you have done, it's that, and this, I'm stealing this from Rich Roll as well, but I think it's a great concept. I'm sure he stole it from someone else. All the best ideas are stolen, right? But it's you're becoming a lighthouse, right? You're doing these things, and it's not because you want to be like some, I'm the ego, I'm the man, whatever it is, but you become a lighthouse to show what's possible. And I think within all of that, this is another example of that, right? Sharing your story around language and how it can affect people and how it's affected you. And hopefully that gives other people the opportunity to actually just pause and think about their own language. And like you said, you still use that language, right? Even within that context. And
I
do
myself
sometimes.
doing it all the time. And it's not like when people say it to me, I never hold it against them.
No.
It's never, I know they're not doing it intentionally.
But it still has that impact, right?
But it does have that impact on me, and it does send me spiraling, especially when I have done something, and this is probably another reason why I don't like shouting about what I've done, because it does have that reaction from people, and the bigger the thing you do, the more people make a fuss about it, and the more times things like that happen, and then it just makes me like remove more and more and put up like those barriers to connecting with people. And after doing these things, like, what I really need is that connection with people, because I just feel so far removed from everything. And I know the challenges are never really the hard part for me. The 6 and 6 wasn't the hard part of the challenge. I loved it, like the running, getting up, putting myself through that, as hard physically and mentally as that is, to get up when you feel like you're broken and keep running. Like, that's not the hard part. The hard part is when it's over, like, how do you deal with it all? Like, I know I've got mental health issues, which is a big reason why I am even drawn to doing this stuff. And then having that all come out and everything to process, it's almost like you bottle a lot of the things up, and then this just shines a spotlight. Like, it draws you out completely bare, and was like, this is what you're avoiding in life. This is what you've got to deal with. And it, like, you just feel completely stripped down. And then it's like, I'm still recovering from the 6 mentally, like, now. And that was like 2 months ago. I'm still like picking up the pieces, and the people that are like closest to me will tell you that, like, the first month, 6 weeks, like, they were really concerned about me. And I've never been close enough to people before to have people worry about me like that after a challenge. Like, no one's noticed that I've like gone a bit dark or down or anything. Like, I wasn't that big on socials. I didn't post about things that much. I did my challenges on my own, but now that people are noticing, it's like, that's another challenge in itself, as well as dealing with like, how do I reconnect with these people like that care about me, and how do I process these emotions in a way that doesn't become a burden to them as well, because everyone's got their own lives. I don't want to add to their stress, and as much as people do care and do want to be around you as well, you are another stress on their life that they probably don't need themselves, and that's hard to deal with, like being a burden to others. And then it makes me feel selfish, because it's like, well, I've done this big thing and it's been a great experience for me, and I'm dealing with the consequences of that, but now you're dealing with the consequences as well. And is that fair? Probably not. Yeah, there's a lot after the challenge that takes a lot to process, and I'm definitely not the best person to ask how to deal with that, because I'm still going through it myself, so I don't have the answers. But
And I think it's, like, again, thanks for sharing. Like, I think it's a really important part, and I talk to a lot of people about the benefits of sports and physical activity, right, for mental health. It's the whole premise that Sport in Mind's built on, and a huge part of that is community, right? And what you've talked about there is feeling isolated, feeling, sometimes feeling like you're the only person who thinks in a certain way or feels a certain way, and that can be really tough to get through. And I think community is part of the answer. And there's challenges with that, right? Like you've said, like you can be concerned that you don't want to put your stuff on somebody else or anything like that. But I think trying to remember that everything that you've done, both in fundraising for the charity and raising awareness for the charity, but also all of those other people, the ripple effect of what you're doing, and even having this type of conversation, right? Like it took a while to convince you this was a good idea to put you in the hot seat, right? But that putting that out there is a really positive impact. And I think there's an element of it's okay, like it's okay to need help, it's okay to want help, it's okay to accept help. And I think that's something that can be a challenge for everyone. I think, not wanting to stereotype, I think men struggle even more with accepting help and asking for it. I think we're not very good at that. And everything that's happening, from a mental health perspective, I heard the other day that sort of 5.5 million people in the UK are on antidepressants. There's a huge wait list of people who haven't even seen anyone, and goodness knows how many people are struggling with mental health challenges, but are not part of that list, right? This is a huge thing for a lot of people. And it sounds really trite sometimes to say it, but if we can move from me to we, if we can start to think about collectively what can we do for each other, I think that's a big part of the solution. And but yeah, like, thank you so much. Like, what a great interview. I think we can all agree that I'm probably in line if you're ever out of action and need a new podcast host. But yeah, no, it's been brilliant, and like, thank you for inviting me. Like, it's been awesome to have a chat, and I'm sure this will be the top performing 100th podcast of your season.
You say that, but my podcasts are actually some of the lowest viewed ones when it's been turned on me, because I've done like a solo episode. I've done another episode which was about me as well, and yeah, they're some of the lowest viewed. And I did a talk for a mental health charity as well, which I recorded and put up there, and that is literally in the bottom 5.
Well, Will, I'll tell you one final little anecdote on that, right? So we've got, as a charity, obviously, we've got some amazing stories. Like, you're one of them, but we have so many people that either come and access the Sport in Mind services or fundraise for us. We have some incredible stories of people who fundraise for us, all of these amazing things. And we share all of that sort of stuff on social media. And then I recorded a ridiculous TikTok with our social media manager at Reading Festival this year, and it was
I loved that one as well.
It was literally me doing a football commentary on a can not being kicked over, and it ended up with 150,000 views on TikTok. So social media is a weird and wonderful place, and but yeah, I'm sure this will do well. And
I mentioned, like, I don't do any of this for the views. I do it for like that connection with people, and what I'm most proud of is the community this podcast has brought together. Like, you experienced it with the Six. That wouldn't have been a thing if it wasn't for the podcast. Like, everything Adventure Athletes stems from the podcast. So yeah, that's my biggest win, is the community it's built. I've got a few really dedicated listeners. I don't tend to get more than, like, I think my most viewed episode on Spotify is at like 250 listens. So that's a big crowd if you get them together. But for a podcast, that's not major numbers. I don't get anything financially from doing this. It is all just, I like sharing the information. And I had Jeff from Big Moose on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
podcast,
Yeah,
and
I know
I was
Jeff.
talking to him, and he said to me, this really stuck with me, which is why I push for listeners now, is he was like, you've told me so much about the impact the podcast has had on your life. Imagine the impact it can have on everyone else's life. And I've had people message me where they've been like, your podcast has like changed my life. And it sounds ridiculous because it's just me. I struggle believing it because it's just me sitting down having a chat. And like I said, I don't plan anything. I shouldn't be allowed a podcast. But it does have that ripple effect, like you're saying. And it's reached way more people than I ever imagined it to. And I'm like, there's clearly something to this. So if I can push it more and more and it can help more people, like I'd love for it to earn money simply so I could pay someone to do everything for me. And like I've always said,
the conversations.
Yeah, I've always said, like, if this ever gets massive and it gets like Joe Rogan level and it's like multi-million-pound thing, like I've always said, if I earn enough that I can pay someone to do it, I will pay them to do it, and then they can keep all the money from the podcast as long as I get to keep having the chats. So if it gets like a multi-million-pound thing, there's going to be someone else in this world that's really rich, and I'll still be just me chatting with people. So I don't do this for money. I don't care about that. I just want to share it so then I can have that positive impact on a slightly bigger corner of the world.
100%.
That's what it's all about.
If you can help one person, it's worth it, right?
Yeah. So, yeah.
I feel like that's a good mic drop moment.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done. Good work, Will.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. It was really weird being the guest for once. I had no idea what to expect, but I really enjoyed this conversation with Ben. If you would like to hear more about Ben and have him as a guest on the podcast next time, drop us a comment, drop us a message, let me know what you think, whether you want to hear more about Ben, more about Sport in Mind, and just like anything to do with running and coaching, as he's quite keen, as you could probably tell, on those topics as well. Yeah, I'm really trying to spread this podcast. We're 100 episodes deep, and I really want to share the knowledge that I get from this podcast as widely as possible. And if you guys have any suggestions on how to improve the podcast, people you want to hear from, topics you want to cover, anything like that, if you're like, oh, the editing's a bit rubbish, or I want you to improve your sound quality, then just drop me a message. I'm really keen to make this as good as possible and to reach as many people as possible as well. The more people we reach, the more it's incentive for me to keep going. I don't get anything from the podcast. I'm just trying to share free knowledge and meet really interesting people. And yeah, 100 episodes, I think that speaks for itself. One day, hopefully, when I've got the time and the money available to, I will make these 2 episodes a week an ongoing thing, something that I can maintain long term. I definitely cannot maintain this long term right now with the rest of the business, but maybe one day we'll get there. But for now, I'll see you in the next one.